Hello and welcome to another edition of the Steelers Depot live stream. I am Alex Kozora. Joining me as always is Dave Bryan from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, getting ready as your preview and lead-in for the Home Run Derby at 8 o'clock. Dave, our last live stream before training camp starts in 10 days from now. We'll be wrapping up the first practice and have our first training camp diary. So glad to be back. Dave, how you doing?
Hey, glad that you're back. Hope you had a good weekend. I understand you took in a movie, watched Superman, and got out of town for a little bit here. And I'm just noticing this in the chat. What are these purple crowns and numbers or whatnot next to names in the chat? What's going on with that? Do you know?
Yeah, I just noticed it too. Must be a new thing YouTube's doing. Looks like top fans, and it's based off of some XP. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe a chatter can tell us, but you're showing up as number one, Dave. So number one in our hearts and number one in the chat.
All right, just as long as I don't get number two on.
All right, let's dive on. And you guys know the system and how this works. We're here till the top of the hour to answer as many Steelers questions as possible. If you guys could like the stream, subscribe to the channel, and of course, check out the site you see on screen, SteelersDepot.com. Always content going up, but about to get really busy starting in really 9 days when players report, and then in 10 days when the Steelers hold their first of 15 public practices. If you want a guarantee of your question being asked and answered by Dave and myself, you can send us a super chat. No obligation to do so. We appreciate them all the same. So let's dive on in with our first question from Brian Jonker, who says, Aaron Rodgers likes to pass and Arthur Smith likes to run. Do we have a squabble in the making? And that has been, Dave, one of the biggest conversation points since Aaron Rodgers officially signed. The relationship between Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers, OC and quarterback, how important and potentially how fragile that can be. How do you see it working? Will those philosophies potentially clash?
Man, if they're going to be an all-out passing offense, if Aaron Rodgers really believes that can happen, they better get busy on maybe adding some more personnel to run more 11 personnel or something along those lines. Nah, look, I would like to think that if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want this thing to just be a footnote in his career, he's going to have to submit himself a little bit to the personnel and the scheme and the offensive coordinator. And look, he does not need to take the kind of hits that he took last season with the Jets. I think it goes without saying that we expect this team to run a lot of 12, 13, and sometimes even 14 personnel, multi-tight ends. Obviously, we'll see DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III out there quite a bit as well too. They go out and add a good tight end / receiver, if you will, and Jonnu Smith. But it all starts with running the football. They can't expect Aaron Rodgers to week after week drop back 45 times or more in games, because eventually that's going to come back to haunt you. I think maybe take one too many hits at times. So look, they'll try. You can't just run the football in the NFL. You're gonna obviously be set up in scenarios where you're going to have to throw the ball, especially on third downs, especially in second and long situations. You're going to have to stretch the field. This team's got to have the explosive plays to go along with a running game this year as well too. So I would like to think that they'll have a meeting of minds, so to speak, as they get deeper into this thing. Aaron will convey what he really likes to do in certain situations, certain plays that he likes. And all, and then obviously Arthur Smith's going to have an overarching goal and plan when it comes to this offense, and most of it should be centered around the run. You don't go out and spend the draft capital early in drafts like this team has on offensive linemen without, we've talked about this team and Andy Weidel and everybody in the organization about building into trenches, and the run's got to come first, though. If they're able to run the football effectively early in games and on early running downs, the rest of it should come as a byproduct, because eventually if you're running the ball effectively against 7-man boxes, hopefully that's going to get that safety to come up. You get a lot of at times one-on-one situations, or at least coverage is a lot easier for Aaron Rodgers to get pre-snap and take advantage of post-snap and all. So there will be a give and take. Are they going to run the football 50 times a game? Absolutely not. But on the flip side, once again, I just don't think Aaron Rodgers is at that point in his career where he can consistently drop back 40 or 50 times a game.
And I'd like to think he realizes that. He knows the offense he signed up for, the offensive coordinator he's working with, Arthur Smith's run-heavy tendencies, a little bit of that experience, not to the same degree, but working with Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, who LaFleur spent time with Arthur Smith. Those guys were close and have some shared philosophical roots. So I think Aaron Rodgers just wants to win, does not want to have the 5-game miserable season. He had the second most pass attempts in the NFL last season. He wasn't happy with how the season went, obviously, so winning I think is all he's really looking for. I don't want to sit there and say there can't be issues between Rodgers and Smith, and really the narrative will get shaped by, does Pittsburgh win? Then they had a great relationship. If they lose, then they had a bad relationship. That's how this thing's going to go. To the victors go the spoils and all that. So I think philosophically, Rodgers understands the more he can hand the ball off and less is more in his final NFL season.
I threw this out in the chat early tonight, wanted to get it out of the way. How many receiving yards will DK Metcalf have in 2025? The last couple of podcasts, I had Ross McCorkle on with me on Friday. We went through that little exercise of stats predictions and kind of followed it up today with giving Ross a second crack at it via his spreadsheet. And then Alex and I got a couple of Alex's numbers in there as well too. Interested to see what a lot of you are thinking about DK Metcalf and receiving yards for 2025. So throw that in the chat today, if you will.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts. Is it 1,000, more than that, less than that? Dave and I had a really good discussion during today's podcast. Want to give a quick shout out to everybody here in the chat, then we'll get to some more questions. We got some new faces and some familiar ones as well. We got John Pennington, Mike Adesso, Frank K, F War 83, David Kapoor, Mac the Guru, Baltimore Gaming, Mark Leslie's first time here in a little while. He says that, so welcome back, Mark. Who is Revel, Daniel Berry, Josh D, and Thomas, who says 1,100 for DK Metcalf is his prediction. All right, let's get to, we got Chan Yang here is in the chat as well. John Pennington says, hello, Dave and Alex. Do you guys think Patrick Queen is a weak link in the middle of the defense and his subpar play needs to improve this season, and should the team replace him in next year's draft? John, I know you've asked a couple times about Patrick Queen. Don't think he had the season he or the team wanted him to have last year. Would I call him the weak link? I don't know if I would call him in those terms, but I think he certainly has to be better in 2025, not just from a splash play standpoint, but a tackling standpoint, pass rushing standpoint, communication standpoint, all around standpoint. So I think you're looking and hoping for Queen to be steadier and more impactful in his second full year in Pittsburgh's system.
Yeah, look, I mean, you're talking about a guy that potentially, if we see the top end of his game, could probably approach 150 tackles in the season, right?
On the extreme high end, I suppose. How many had 110 last year?
That's the extreme high, but I mean, it's not, it's plausible, with a good season.
Sure.
And what did he have? And look, tackles obviously aren't the end all do all with that. It goes without saying he didn't have the kind of season that I imagined the team envisioned him having. He had 129 combined tackles last season overall. How many interceptions went through his hands last year, Alex? At least 3?
I think the one got tipped and picked by Beanie. I'm trying to think on the other ones. Yeah, there were a couple. Maybe one against the Chargers, I want to say. So there were some missed opportunities for sure. I'm a little less focused on that. I want to see the splash, but I want to see the better tackling. I want to see the better, more consistent communication. That's been the knock on Queen. Can he be Patrick Queen and still call plays? It feels like whenever he wears the green dot, his play is a little subpar.
How many times last year did we see him and Landon Roberts head toward the same guy in coverage?
Mm-hmm. Too often.
Too often there. So, yeah, look, here's the thing. He isn't going anywhere this year. He's going to be the man in the middle. We talked a lot this offseason about this team getting better up the spine, both against the run and against the pass as well, too. He's right in the middle of all that. He's got to have a better season. If he has a season equal to, or God forbid, worse than what he had last year, he might not see that 2026 season. And you could indeed see this team maybe have to go back in the draft. On the flip side, if he does have the kind of season they signed up for, much better season than he had this year, might we be talking about a Patrick Queen extension next offseason?
That's true. It's a big year for Patrick Queen. He is in the bucket of results-oriented players. Guys like him, Keanu Benton, Broderick Jones, either you produced or you didn't. No excuses, no explanations, just produce, and he's got to be one of those guys.
How many tackles for loss did the inside linebackers have last year? Queen had 6. Landon Roberts had 5. Peyton Wilson had 3.
So that's 14.
That's it.
What number do you want them to hit next year, this year? 20?
At least 20. How many interceptions did the inside linebackers have last year? Peyton Wilson had that takeaway down the left sideline against the Ravens. That's 1. That is it, I believe. Like to see a couple of how many forced fumbles did that group have last year? Queen had 2 takeaways. One of them, I believe, was against the Ravens maybe that was the same game as the Wilson interception. Landon Roberts had 1 forced fumble as well too, and Peyton Wilson had 1. So you had what 3, 5, 4 forced fumbles from that inside linebacker unit. Like to see that be a little bit higher as well.
Yeah, more splash. And Peyton Wilson, big year for him. I think a breakout year could happen if the run defense improves a little bit. Had a video on the channel breaking down his rookie tape last week. All right, let's go to Mike Odessa, who says, who's putting down money on Cruz winning the Derby tonight? We'll see. He's got a good chance. I think James Wood from Washington might win it, but we will see. His Steelers-related question is, assuming all stay healthy, who gets the most offensive snaps at the season's end between Ramsey, Joey Porter Jr., and Darius Slay? Who gets second most? So how would you rank the snap count between those top 3 corners?
I think Slay will be last. Just wrote him up today, I think, in the 90 and 30. He's going to obviously play a lot in my head. Right now, I envision in base defense, potentially Ramsey and Porter being out there. And obviously, they're not going to play a ton of base, at least we don't think they are. And then sub-package opens up the opportunity for Slay to get on the field, I believe, at outside, opposite Joey Porter, and then potentially Ramsey sliding down inside. So I can envision, 750, 800 for Slay, maybe? Is that pushing it as far as snaps go in sub package? I don't know. Probably be, assuming everybody stays healthy. Let's say about 750 snaps for Slay. When is Ramsey? I guess the better question is, when is Ramsey going to be off the field?
Not often. I mean, you would assume in sub package and nickel and dime, they're all playing. If they're all healthy, I don't know why any of them would come off the field. The question is going to be about in your base defense, used about 20-25% of the time, a couple hundred snaps. Not a nothing number, but obviously a minority figure. But do they have 3 corners and 1 safety on the field? Do they have just the 2 corners? And if so, who are they? You would assume Ramsey will essentially never come off the field. Will Slay get rotated out? That would make the most amount of sense. Porter's the younger player, fresher legs, ascending. Slay's 34, maybe manages snaps a little bit. So that would make sense overall. But we'll see. I do think we'll see some of those 3 corners, 1 safety package. Not fairly often, but we'll see it this year.
I think for as far as the rankings and total snaps go, assuming everybody stays healthy, I imagine Joey Porter Jr. will have the most snaps, and it will be Ramsey just slightly behind him, and then Slay back a little bit there.
Fair. I'll be different slightly. I'll say Ramsey 1, Porter 2, and Slay 3.
All right.
All right. We'll be charting it.
They're asking, why do I hate? Why did something with his dog or whatnot, DK Metcalf. No, look, I think DK Metcalf was a hell of a damn ad this offseason. I think he's extremely talented wide receiver. I just wonder how you're going to feed all these, if there's going to be enough to feed all the way around for a guy like DK Metcalf to, get exceed 900. And as we talked about, I think this morning on the podcast, he hasn't had a season yet under 900 receiving yards, I don't think. So but within that, how many of you really think Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for 4,000 yards this season? And if you have Aaron Rodgers along the lines of, say, 3,700, as we showed in that exercise, how do you get there? How do you feed all these mouths? How do you get the running backs the 80 receptions and however many yards? How do you get the tight ends, let's say 120 receptions and whatever yardage and all? I just do kind of wonder if there's going to be enough volume and enough yardage for DK Metcalf to get up, well over 900 yards.
I don't want to debate the point too much more. We talked about it a lot on the podcast today, but isn't that asking the wrong question? Isn't the question you start with, how do we get our number one receiver the ball as much as possible?
Sure, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, especially early in games. I mean, what was one of the big bugaboos since Pickens has been here. You got to get those guys involved early in games and all like that. And I imagine that would be the onus. I mean, you don't bring a guy in, give up a second round draft pick and make him the fourth or fifth or third or whatever he is right now, highest paid wide receiver in the league, just to go out there and eat up routes for the ball to go elsewhere, right?
Sure.
But within that, though, is it still going to be enough? Are you going to be throwing the football down the field? We talked this morning about how many explosive plays he's had during his career and how many he had last year, 20. Are they going to be able to produce those kind of explosive plays to him specifically in this offense? You like to think that they will, but I mean, is the volume going to be there enough, knowing that this team wants to run the football? And look, I mean, who's going to be the second leading receiver on this team? It's probably going to be a tight end, right? And who's going to be the third? It very well could be another tight end.
Sure, Brian Muth and Johnny Smith.
There. So how do you feed everybody?
I get it. So we'll see, but I think Aaron Rodgers has a good mindset about getting his playmakers the ball, and he knows Metcalf is by far this team's number one playmaker. All right, next question comes from F483. He says, more of a comment. Well, it's a question and a comment. He says, Juwan Jennings to the Steelers for a 2027 third. Who says no? Question is, would San Francisco say no, Dave?
Yeah, I would want to think that if it's a big if they end up trading him. I'm with Alex on this. I think the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease here by the time it's all said and done. But if they do trade Jennings, wouldn't you want draft capital for next year? Especially if you're already as light as they are at the wide receiver position, or would be even lighter at that point. And I haven't looked at next year's wide receiver class, but I'd imagine it's probably a little bit better than this year's class and all. So, I mean, I guess on the Steelers side, if you could get away with the cheeseburger a couple years out, yeah, why wouldn't you? Now, you got to look at this also from a cash and cap perspective. You have to think Jennings is looking for at least $15 million, right? I mean, look what Wilson just got today. Terry McLaurin's probably looking at that and smiling right now.
Or frowning because he wants his money, but I get your point.
Yeah, but I mean, Jennings wants to get paid here, and merely just trading for the player is not going to be enough. You got to give him, he's going to be in the same situation of wanting a deal. And, even though there's always ways to make this work with the cash and cap situation, unless TJ Watt's sit packing, and I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't really think it's going to fit into their cap or the cash budget, at least what they have outlined. And look, we recently came across who was the former front office guy,
Samir Suleiman.
Yeah, who was on with Adam Kaplan not too terribly long ago, talking about off-season cash plans and all. And if you think teams don't go into the off-season ahead of the draft and ahead of free agency, getting a good idea of what they want to spend in cash, then you're fooling yourselves. These teams have cash plans, and do they have to be able to shift on the fly, much in the same way that maybe we have just recently seen the Steelers do so with Ramsey and Johnny Smith and Minka going out the door? Yeah, you have to be flexible within that. But how many times do you think that these teams set a cash goal and expect to have to be as flexible as that? Now, do bargains come across? Do guys get cut late in the off season and those kind of things, and the trade deadline and all like that? Yeah, that kind of stuff happens. But I just think at its core, look, we've talked about Jennings quite a bit over the last couple of years. You and I are both big fans of Jennings here. We've mentioned that. There's several posts, I think, on the site that I've wrote about Jennings and all dating back to last year, especially, heading into the tender year and all like that and all. I think he's a fantastic player, but I just think, you can't lose sight of the fact that, he wants to get paid on top of it. And then you can't lose sight of the fact that it's going to take draft capital. And we've already seen this team maneuver and add two guys in Ramsey and Johnny Smith, and they were able to do that without giving up draft capital for 2026. And I would imagine that would ring true if indeed they got into any talks about Jennings. So, never say never. I've learned to say that over the years, but I would be highly surprised if A, 49ers let him walk, and B, if they did let him go to another team, I'd be surprised if it's the Steelers.
Yeah, it just makes sense for the Niners to keep Juwan Jennings. You're going to trade two receivers in one offseason, and Brandon Ayuk's coming off torn ACO, probably won't be ready for week one, and I think DeMarcus Robinson might have some off-field thing that might prevent or cloud his future. They paid Ayuk, they paid Debo the first time. I think Jennings will get paid as well. I think Pittsburgh wants to keep their powder dry from a draft pick perspective, and the Niners, do they want to do pick for player and not get assets now? Could they want a receiver back? They wanted a receiver back in the Ayuk deal last year. I guess you could try to conjure something up, but even if you trade, say, a Calvin Austin, he's on an expiring contract. So I don't know. I good player, would love it. I think it's a great system fit, but don't see that being the likely outcome. I'm with you. I think Jennings stays in San Francisco. Next question from John Pennington says, Alex, what players will you be keeping a keen eye on in training camp this year? It's hard to narrow the list down because I try to always go in with a clean slate and just eyes wide open to see whatever catches my attention. I'll be a broken record many more times over, Dave. The play of this young offensive line, Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, Mason McCormick, guys Pittsburgh is counting on to have really strong seasons, either ascending years or bounce back years. In the case of Broderick Jones, defensively mentioned Peyton Wilson, of course, all the rookies, about a Quindell Johnson at safety. Can somebody else emerge there? So it's really hard to narrow it down because I just want to see everybody, especially in an offseason with so much change and with so much new and expectations being relatively high. There's just a lot to take in this summer.
Yeah, there is. And on the heels of Jalen Ramsey and Johnny Smith coming in, that sews up two more roster spots. This team has had a lot of changeover on the back end of this thing. But even within that changeover, I think it's already easy to carve out, 42, 43 roster spots at least.
I did my deconstructing the Steelers roster with the locks. I didn't do the final tally on how many were considered locks, but it not 42 in terms of true locks. But yeah, I mean, I think in most off seasons, especially for seasons like Pittsburgh, where they're not totally, no big regime change or anything like that completely changes the roster. Yeah, you're going to have probably 45 spots pretty much spoken for and battling for the last 8 or so remaining spots.
All right. Is there any one particular undrafted free agent you're really wanting to watch this year?
It was a pretty good undrafted haul for Pittsburgh, unusually so. So there's a couple names you could talk about. Probably Sebastian Castro from Iowa, the safety, given the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. And Castro, I think, will be a hair on fire, a special teamer, Little Mouse Killebrew in that respect. I think he'll set a tone in training camp. He's versatile. He's a guy that just made a lot of plays at Iowa. So him. DJ Thomas Jones, the fullback from South Alabama. I was a big J.J. Galbraith fan, the tight end from South Dakota. Was it South Dakota State? I always get it mixed up. South Dakota, I think, was where he came from. So those are some guys I'll be watching.
I am less bullish. I'm more bullish on Galbraith, and you've been bullish on Galbraith for a while, but I am a lot more bullish on him than I am the South Alabama
Thomas
fullback.
Jones. Any reason? I think because Thomas Jones can be a fullback. Now Johnny Smith, I think, could hurt that, but Johnny Smith's not going to play like true fullback or special teams.
Well, the thing with Thomas Jones is the fact that you dive deeper into his tape and his overall stats. He didn't line up a lot in the backfield at South Alabama. And he's obviously an undersized guy. He's not even 6'2". He didn't do a lot of on special teams during his time at he barely played at Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 3 years at South Alabama, he barely played on special teams as well, too. And yet the Steelers list him. He played a lot of in-line tight end and obviously was split out on top of it. And, yeah, he did play some at fullback and in the backfield, but he doesn't have a lot of that experience in total. Now, the stats when he was back there are okay for the most part from the little bit I watched on him and all. But how does a guy like that kind of filter in? Because, look, he's not one for one a Connor Hayward, but I mean he's kind of in that same build. And
yes, but bigger and a better blocker, more powerful.
Right. But I mean, are you really going to put that guy at 6'1" and what is he, 6'8", 7/8"? Are you really going to expect that guy to be your fourth tight end, into the line kind of guy?
They use Connor Hayward as a tight end. Why wouldn't they use Thomas Jones?
That don't mean it's the right answer, Bob.
I know, but I'm saying they had no qualms with putting Hayward at tight end. Thomas Jones is bigger, thicker, taller.
Yeah, but hopefully you should learn from your lessons, right?
Well, I think that's why, because he's listed as a fullback, Thomas Jones, on the Steelers site, right?
Right, but I mean, how much is he actually going to see as a fullback and versus lined up on the end of the line of scrimmage? And once again, it goes back to the fact that he really wasn't asked to play fullback a lot at South Alabama.
Sure. He was an H-back. You're right. There was not really a lot of hand in the ground, I formation at Ole Miss or South Alabama. But this guy can block. He I think is a guy that can catch. There's some of that on his tape. Special teams will kind of be the wild card. Can he make some hay there? It's going to be the real sticking point, I think. But I'm just saying, Arthur Smith's offense likes a fullback. They want physical blockers. He can block. Will he make the 53? We'll see. He's got to obviously prove it, and a whole lot to a long ways to go to earn that. But there's some intrigue there, I think.
All right.
We'll have reports on all those guys, though. Who is Rebel says Aaron Rodgers currently 1,136 yards behind Ben for fifth all-time passing yards. How will you and Steelers Nation react to this, especially if at home in Week 6 against the Brownies? I assume that means he passes Ben. Ben's talked about it. He said record's meant to be broken. I mean, I'll just take it as a stat and we'll talk about it, but it's not going to mean a whole lot to me. It's just going to matter about, do they beat the Browns in Week 6,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, and he's played long enough. He should be breaking some of these records, right?
Mm-hmm, for sure. It would have been broken had he not missed 2023 4 plays in. If you guys could like the stream, subscribe to the channel, check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Would really appreciate that. Josh D says, good evening, gents. Why aren't the Steelers considering trading Watt? I think if you look at their moves now, I don't want to say they're all in to win now. That would be inaccurate given the cap space they have next year, the draft capital, etc. But there's certainly a push to win now with Aaron Rodgers and the Ramsey deal and making the big play for Metcalf, which is for the long term, but also for the here and now. So does that mesh and jive to trade Watt at the same time? It would seem that vision would be muddy if you're making some moves to certainly try to win now, signing Aaron Rodgers obviously included in that, while also trading TJ Watt.
Yeah, I've never, if you've listened to the podcast and follow me on Twitter, I don't think there's any truth to any this team even considering trading Watt. They got a huge cash hole still that they need to fill, and as I've said, the only way I see Watt being traded is he just unequivocally comes out and says, I want out of here. I'm not going to take any deal that you offer me. Get me out of here. I'm done with this place. That's it. And if they were to deal him, I would imagine it'd be another trade that would include a high dollar player that they would have to spend some cash on this year to help fill not only a cash hole this year, but put some cash on the books next year as well too. So once again, as I've said, I understand the pushback, Twitter, all social media in here on the site and all like that. People saying there's no way he's worth $40 million. Okay. I mean, I think he is. I think they can afford to do it. I think you do it in mind that you might only get 3 years out of him. And that would obviously be the max that the Steelers would go in guarantees. They're probably a lot of finagling right now. That's probably why this deal isn't done, is because of, is it going to be first 2 years guarantee or all 3 guaranteed? But I tell you what, you might as well get yourself ready for this deal getting done at some point between now and week 1. And probably for him to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL once again as well too. It's just all signs point to that getting done. All this other stuff that happens between what the media is trying to throw out there and say they're looking into trade value and all. I think that's just all white noise. I think this thing will get done, and I'll be surprised if it's not done.
Fair enough. We'll see. And the first line in the sand, to use your phrase, will be 9 days from now on Training Camp Report Day. Does Watt show? We both think he will, but can't guarantee anything right now. Got a generous $5 super chat from DTG108. He says, "Hey Alex, first time at training camp next Friday and super excited. Best place to sit and how early should we get there? Congrats, man. I'm glad you're at training camp. It's a wonderful time. Best place to sit. I mean, if you're going
not in Alex's spot.
I don't have a spot. If you're going to watch practice and not autograph search, I don't know exactly what your plans are there. Up and probably if you can get there early, and I think they're going to open the gates at 11:45 this year. The earlier you can get there, if you want to try to catch a bit of shade, you want to sit up by the announcer's box behind that or in front of that, but there's a shady area there if you're down near front, and you're not going to catch really any shade during practice. So, I mean, it's just grandstands. It's just bleachers, so it's not a whole lot of seating options. You can sit on the hill if you want to, and if you want to bring a blanket or something like that. But if you're looking for a bit of shade and try to escape the sun, if it is going to be sunny, I don't know what forecast looks like, then bleachers up, back rows, couple, 3-4 back rows, probably your best bet. I would suggest getting there early Friday, the first Friday. People will take off work. It's probably going to be pretty packed. The weekends are especially crowded, so I would try to get there. It's a 2 o'clock practice. I think gates open 11:45. I don't know, 12 or so. I usually get there around 1 o'clock, but it's just me, so I can slide in somewhere if you're bringing other people, the family. Yeah, I would say probably get there for noon. Bring water, check the weather. You can bring food in, all that kind of stuff. So help you get through practice and enjoy training camp. All right, next question comes from, let me find it here. Let's see, David says he thinks DK breaks 1,000 yards, but worried we still don't have a strong receiver 2 like last year. A fair critique. I think Austin, a healthy Roman Wilson, the tight end addition of Johnny Smith can hopefully quell some of those things, but understand the point, David. John says, like the stream, everybody. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. We got Kenny here. Chan Yang says, do you think this year is less of a, quote, all-in year, but a gap year where they still want to compete because Tomlin is Tomlin, but with so many picks in 2026 and some bets, it's more of a rebuild year? The question is, what is your expectation? I think Pittsburgh wants to make a run, not just at winning a playoff game, but hopefully being one of those final teams. Now, will they do so? Certainly can be skeptical about that. I don't think they see this as a rebuilding year at all. It's a retooling year. It's a year of change to try to infuse some different player types and energy and new faces into this unit. Rodgers is certainly a bridge, but I think they just see this as some ways to win now while still having draft picks for next year and cap space next year to go get that quarterback.
Yeah, they reloaded, and Tomlin going back to the early offseason said there's going to be changes, and there has been a lot of changes on this roster. I mean, look at how different this roster. Look, any given NFL team on any given year usually changes out about the bottom third at least. of their ending 53-man roster, or let's call it a ending for guys on IR. Let's say about a 56 or a 57-man roster and all like that. I mean, there's been a lot of change that's gone on with this team overall. And you brought in obviously a couple of veterans now, just recently post mandatory minicamp in Ramsey and Jonnu Smith, and you obviously got things started early in the offseason with Slay, and I mean there's been a lot of changes overall. And then you look at the quarterback position, and I mean Pat Freiermuth, one of your longest tenured guys on offense now at this point. Defense, obviously, they've retooled that and hope to get better against the run. They threw 2 draft picks at the defensive line this year as well too, and yeah, I just think that you're never going to get them to say rebuild or whatnot. They're going to constantly call it a retool, if you will.
And Chan, you're right. You said it well. Tomlin is Tomlin. He doesn't know how to rebuild. He's never been part of a rebuild in the NFL before. He won a Super Bowl in his first year, I want to say, in Tampa Bay, maybe his second year. In Pittsburgh, he won the Super Bowl in his second year, so he's always come into places that were high expectations, Super Bowl bound. He's only been part of, I think, maybe just one losing team since entering the NFL in 2001, that 06 season with Minnesota, where the defense was good, the offense was just kind of a mess. Maybe there was a losing season in Tampa Bay, but overall, all he knows is to be around winning, to be in that environment, to be in that expectation. It's never been a season where he's gone in going, yeah, probably won't be our year this year. We're just rebuilding. And so I think that's kind of in his DNA, right or wrong. That's the philosophy, and that's the reflected in the moves Pittsburgh's making. Kenny says Watt should be traded. He is out of commission by week 15 every year and wouldn't be available to be full strength for the playoffs. And so Kenny is on the pro trade Watt train. Mark Leslie says, a fun one. Which current Steeler has the best chance in the home run derby? Good question. It's been quarterbacks winning it in training camp. They have a little home run derby themselves in camp each year. It was, I think, Kenny Pickett 2 years ago and Russell Wilson with his former baseball background last year. I'm going to assume Aaron Rodgers is not winning a home run derby, Dave. Who do you think would take the crown?
Oh, Lord, I wouldn't even begin to, let's see.
Trying to think if anyone has a baseball background on this team.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to cheat and look at here.
Cam Hayward, he doesn't have a baseball background, but he's got some strength, some power.
I'm drawing a blank here. I wonder how. Geez, I don't know.
That Steelers charity, I think, sponsored by the Hayward House softball game coming up. So I think Hayward's going to be in it. I think Pat Freiermuth, Christian Kuntz, maybe Patrick Queen. So maybe one of those guys. Maybe we'll get a little taste of that coming up here before training camp. Good question. All right, Thomas Pelter says, I'm bullish on Rodgers. It's going to be the best quarterback play we've seen since 2018, he says. I hope you're right, Thomas.
Thomas, do you think he'll throw for 4,000 yards or more?
Do you think he'll throw for 4,000 yards today?
Just short of that. I don't think he'll throw for 4,000.
3,700. What's a good number? What's your over/under?
Let us come up with a good over/under here.
He threw for about 3,900 or so last year. Now again, second most attempts. Jets playing from behind. We talked about on the podcast. 4,000 yards may not necessarily be a good thing. It just depends on the context of why you're throwing for that many yards.
When is the last time he threw for at least 4,000 yards?
I want to say 2021. I just looked it up during the show today.
2021.
Okay.
Yeah, 4,100. I would say an over/under of 3,700.
And would you take the over or the under?
I'd probably be hedged towards the over.
I went the under. I went 3,500 in my back of the napkin math projection earlier today. How many yards really?
And then once again, if you're that low on him too, walk through, everyone listening to this, break out the spreadsheet and and try to make the math work as far as your 5 wide receivers and your 3 running backs and your 3 tight ends. How do you make all that math work and then still come out of that with, let's say, DK Metcalf well over 1,000 yards?
Well, George Pickens had a 900-yard season despite missing 3 games, and Pittsburgh threw for about 3,100 yards last year. So injuries are going to happen. Not everything's going to be so evenly distributed the way it looks now. How many yards did Geno Smith throw for in Seattle last year? Are you able to look that up really quickly for me, Dave?
Yes.
Just as one last talking point on that, then we'll move on, get out of here by 8, and enjoy the Derby.
He threw for 4,320 last year.
Dang, and Metcalf still only came in at, how many yards does Metcalf have? 900 and change? 960 something?
All right.
So I still think, Pittsburgh's had a 900 plus yard receiver for the last several years. Pickens done it, even despite some really bad quarterback play. I think Rodgers will get Metcalf to about 1,000, even if he's at, say, 3,500 to 4,000. But we'll see. I'll have my projections before the season begins. Randy Wagner says he has a fantastic feeling about Aaron Rodgers propelling us forward. So Thomas and Randy, they're confident in what Aaron Rodgers can provide. I think he'll play well. And if the O-line can protect him, both as a run-blocking unit that puts Pittsburgh in good situations, that takes some of the heat off Rodgers, and then, of course, in actual true pass protection, the better off Rodgers will be for it. He needs a clean pocket, Dave. And that's just simple reality. The legs aren't there. Off-platform throws are not there to the degree it once was, and so he needs a clean pocket. If he can do that, he can be a really good quarterback.
And look, 3,700 yards. This team can still win games with Aaron Rodgers only throwing for 3,700 yards, especially if they're able to run the football, right? So it's just trying to do the math of what you think the offense capabilities are through the air based on the personnel that we're likely to see out there, and the kind of the top end ceiling of where you think maybe Aaron Rodgers is at this point of his career. So saying that you think a guy like Aaron Rodgers, is only going to throw for 3,700 yards and thinking that DK Metcalf's more likely to come in under 900 receiving yards and over, this team can still win games with that.
Yeah, look what they've got in the last couple of years. They had years where they threw 12 touchdowns. It's just abysmal numbers to set back the passing clock. So if you can get, my projection was 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns for Rodgers. Pittsburgh hasn't seen those numbers in quite some time, so that would be still a big upgrade. Mm-hmm. And it means probably that you're running the ball well, you're playing with the lead, and you're not needing to throw, and that has as much an impact on your passing numbers as almost anything else. Mm-hmm. Let's see, you got about 15 minutes left. Mike Adesso with the second-round picks holding out still. Does that hurt the value of future second-round picks in trades at all? Kind of makes a DK trade even better, to be honest. It does in that sense. Does that hurt the value of second-round picks? Eventually this thing will get figured out with all these rookies, and, eventually these all second-round picks will be basically fully guaranteed anyway, or at least throughout the first 3 years, and so it's just kind of a weird, awkward time to kind of work through some of this impasse, Dave, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts the value of the pick, because the talent is the talent there. It's just more of a chore now to get these guys signed, and we'll see where the line in the sand ends up getting drawn this year as far as full guarantees. And more specifically, I think the thing that's probably the most intriguing to watch is the third-year guarantees, because we went over this morning with Zach Frazier and what his contract and why that part of that hold up last year had nothing to do with the fourth and final year. He wasn't going to get the fourth and final year guaranteed. It's just how much they keep just trying to push that line forward and forward and forward more. So at some point, it's obviously not going to be this year, and it probably won't be next year, but at some point, they're going to get all the way through these second rounders. Will they get through all the second rounders being fully guaranteed? Or let's put it this way. Will they have done enough work to get the second and the full third rounders fully guaranteed by the time the next CBA comes up in 2030?
It's a long time to predict it out. I really don't know. Maybe not. At some point, they're going to just make all these rookie contracts completely fully guaranteed at signing. rounds 1 through 7, or maybe not rounds 1 through 7, but I don't know, first 3 rounds or something like that, right?
I mean, at some point, I don't know if I'll live. You would hope the NFLPA keeps pushing hard for that. I don't know how quickly they'll be able to get that done as some sort of, I don't know, trade off for more and more games. I don't know. That would certainly be a sticking point if I'm the NFLPA. But long story short, to answer the question, does it hurt the value of the pick because it takes longer to get the players signed? No, you're going to get these guys signed sooner rather than later. You obviously would like to have these guys signed by the time they get in training camp, and that within is a problem. You got a guy that's supposed to compete and be a heavy producer for your team in some organizations, even though he's a second round pick, but yet he misses the first, let's say he misses the first 2 weeks of training camp. Well, he's behind the bus, and how does that set him back for his rookie year and all like that? So that's the biggest potential drawback to this thing. The talent's still going to be there. It's just the minutia of getting him signed and in camp on time, which this could start being a bigger problem, especially when you got the Houston Texans out there, throwing, giving one of their second rounders fully guaranteed 4-year contract.
But these dominoes will fall pretty quickly, too. Once one guy signs, everyone will fall in line. Teams will want to get these deals done. Deadlines per action. It gets a little funky with the Judkins arrest and Tyler Shuck being a quarterback in early second round, but it'll all get done. McEldew says experience is nice for, I think he says Harmon. He says Mason. I'm just trying to clarify, but he says, will Troy Fautanu hit a rookie type of wall? So I'm not entirely sure if you're asking about Fautanu or Harmon or rookie walls. Will Harmon do it? Most rookies do. Fautanu, what is kind of his de facto rookie year. The experienced guys came out pretty veteran for a college prospect. Everyone has to go through it and through the grind of a season. You don't know it until you've fully done it, but I don't know. I think guys like Fautanu, especially an older prospect, kind of is probably a little more mentally, physically ready than maybe a young guy coming out.
Yeah, I think too. Even though he lost obviously most of his season, though he got to see, and he had that pre-draft process, which he doesn't, obviously doesn't have to worry about that this year. And then he's been in the league now. He's got the feedback from players. He knows the process of better ways to have your body more right. And even though he didn't play the actual snaps, I think he has more of the knowledge of the how to make sure that you're more physically conditioned and in the right state of mind to play a full, obviously 17 game regular season, and hopefully much more longer than that. So I think with any rookie, you worry about that, right? Just because having to go through the pre-draft process and first year in the NFL. But I would like to think that even though he was sidelined as long as he was last year, that he learned how to better prepare himself this time around.
And the college football playoff is helping make this a little less of a challenge. These guys are not playing, upwards of 13, 14, 15 games in a season. Washington had their playoff run. Oregon had a playoff run until Ohio State ended it. So these guys are getting used to playing schedules that are a bit more, getting closer to NFL-like than the 10 or 11 games they were playing with the season and a bowl game after a month layoff. So I think the learning curve is less than what it used to be. Next question comes from McEldew. How do we go from Jackson and Pierre to Slay and Ramsey, and we're not going to get better? Certainly an upgrade at cornerback, no question about that. If you want to say the defense and the secondary got better, I'd probably be there with you. The question is, how do you replace Minkah Fitzpatrick, and how do some of the new pieces coalesce when you add expected complexity to become more multiple, more versatile when communication was an issue last year? So that'll be the real big sticking point. But yeah, on paper, there's certainly reasons for upgrade, especially just looking at the cornerback room 1-to-1 last year to this year.
When you look at it, a lot of people probably forget, even though you had the Dante Jacksons and the Cameron Suttons, and, you had a rookie in there and Beanie Bishop having to play the amount of snaps that he played and all like that, this defense still as now this obviously is more than just coverage, but the sacks were down last year. This defense still put up a defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat number in the 17-game regular season of 5.7, and that was one of the better. That was in the top. What was it? Top 10 or so, I think. I don't have it sorted here, but for the personnel that they had, and for the sacks being down, because obviously sacks and sack yardage plays into defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat number. 5.7 with the personnel that you had. We talked earlier about Queen not having a great year and the busted coverages and him and Lehner. What I'm getting at, I'm with the commenter there. You bring in some experienced guys, especially guys that are heavy in the pass defense department, like that graphic that Ross just posted about Ramsey and Slay. If everybody stays healthy in this thing, wouldn't common sense dictate that they have a better and thinking that sacks are not going to be as low as they were last year? Wouldn't common sense dictate that they have a potential of putting up a better defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat number than last year's 5.7, which wasn't bad league wide?
It would, and you would like to think the run defense is better down the stretch. I mean, I guess if you look at the numbers, the run defense still wasn't awful, but the team got tired. They wore down. The Eagles, the Ravens, of course, the Ravens in the playoff game, that really impacted lack of pass rush when you can't pin your ears back, when teams are staying ahead of the sticks and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think overall you would and should expect this defense to be better in 2025.
If you get this defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat number down just a little bit to, let's say, 5.2, 5.3, you're going to be in a lot of ball games, period.
And if this offense is even just average, you're going to win a lot of ball games.
Right.
And
Chris Boswell, their offensive number was 6.2 with all that, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and Pickens missing time, 6.2. Looking back at it now, I mean, for all that went on, obviously you want it better. You want it more around 7.1, 7.2. But they were in a lot of ball games last year. Well, I mean, late in the season we saw what happened there. But leading up to that point, I'm not brushing it all underneath the table, mind you. But statistically, and if people know how important that stat is, you would at least think it's going to be better on a defensive side of the ball. Can Aaron Rodgers and company put up a better number than 6.2?
You would hope so with all the additions, but it really rides on that offensive line and their progression and if they meet expectations. Defensively, though, they did not give up a lot of big plays last year. That was a really underrated part of the defense. They kept the lid on things. Even in the losing streak, they didn't really allow a lot of big plays. It was these long slog, 15-play drives to the end zone. And so the subtraction of Minkah Fitzpatrick, can you still keep a lid on things defensively? That's going to be a big question. Matt Goldu said McCormick, by the way, about the rookie wall. So I'm still trying to clarify the question, but will McCormick have a rookie wall kind of thing? I think he'll be good. I think, guys, in year 2, he played a good amount in year number 1. He should be good start to finish in terms of not hitting the rookie wall.
He played like 3,000 snaps in college, too, didn't he?
Yeah, and in South Dakota State, I don't know their exact paths, but they were always in the playoffs. They were always making FCS title game runs, and so this guy was playing like 15-game seasons every single year. So this is all old hat to him.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him.
Yeah, now his play has some things to work on, but mentally and the rigors of the game, I think he'll be good. He's an old-school offensive lineman. Let's get to as many questions as we can to finish things out. Dave Mike Adesso, Alex, says he's being a psycho driving up from the Berg from Miami. He was at camp last year. He's going up again this year to see some practices. Do you think the practices on July 30th and the 31st will be in pads? I'll definitely stop by and say hi. Yeah, definitely say hello. The first 4, I don't have the schedule on hand, will not be in pads. That is mandated by the NFL as the ramp-up period. So of the first 4, they'll have an off day Monday. That first day back, which is the Tuesday, the date escapes me. I want to say the 29th. That will be in pads for sure. From there, it's Tomlin's discretion. I don't think it can be in pads more than 3 days in a row, but they wouldn't violate that from the 30th and 31st. So I don't have the schedule in front of me, but the first 4 will be just helmets. The next one, the 5th one, will be in pads. I imagine the 6th one will be in pads as well, and you kind of go from there.
Miami to Latrobe. Is that what he said?
Yeah, he came up last year. He was at the Latrobe practice. So
did he make it?
Or the high school practice.
Does he make that all in one day?
That's a good question, Mike. Let us know. Skirt says,
wow.
am I crazy for thinking Roman Wilson could be Aaron Rodgers' go-to guy? I don't want to call you crazy, Skirt. I don't know if he will be. I think a young receiver historically has not had great success, young receivers with Aaron Rodgers. I know he's gotten some Randall Cobb comparisons, some Jordy Nelson comparisons. I would love for Wilson to emerge. I'm a little skeptical he'll become the go-to guy, though.
Look, we went back over the resubmission from Ross McCorkle on his breakdown of receptions and yards and all like that. And Alex and I kind of both agreed somewhere in the neighborhood of where Ross was. He has 20 receptions for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. How many of you listening to this think Roman Wilson blows those, not just barely beats 25 receptions or something like that? How many of you think, listening to this, Roman Wilson blows out of the water 20 for 300?
Yeah, it's a good question. And if he does, then great. But he's going to be playing rotational snaps, and so there's certainly no guarantee that he will. I'm just trying to pull up the training camp schedule, too. So give me 1 second. That's why you see the image on screen. But yeah, Wilson's production and the quality of that production will be important, obviously.
If he hits 30, 35 receptions, I think it's a huge win for the Steelers based on this offense and distribution and getting the ball around.
Yeah, I get that. So here is the training camp schedule. The first 4, you see the asterisks there. That is NFL mandated. They will not be in pads for that, cannot be in pads for that. Tuesday the 29th, they almost certainly will be in pads. That's the first backs on backers, the first time they can put the pads on, and they will take full advantage. You guys know Pittsburgh's camp practices easily the NFL's most physical. Wednesday the 30th, that's when Mike said his first day there. I would expect them to be in pads. I can't guarantee it, but I would expect it. Now, will they be full contact? There's usually the one team period where they will ramp things up and they'll kind of back things down the other ones. Thursday the 31st, I think that's the last day you can be in pads in a row. I think if I can remember the NFL rules. So that one, because they're going to be in pads on the 1st for Friday Night Lights. If I had to guess, I'll say they're in pads the 29th. Book that. They'll be in pads the 30th. I'll say they won't be in pads the 31st, so they can be in pads for August 1st. That is my best guess of how things will go. But again, Tomlin has discretion. All right, let's see what else we have here to finish things out. Let's go through a couple more really quickly. Is it true the Steelers checked around the league to see what was TJ's value? Sorry, I'm late if you answered the question already. I was gone this weekend, Dave. I know Mark Cabaldi made some overtures, but then maybe you tried to walk stuff back. Can you give us just a quick Cliff Notes version? What was he reporting, if anything?
I just think it's just a lot of air talk overall. I mean, I have teams potentially called this. Do I think the Steelers have actively gone looking for what kind of trade compensation they could get for TJ Watt? My answer to that would be no. I don't think they're picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, what would you give us for TJ Watt?" No. Is there a potential of teams calling, just doing due diligence on TJ Watt? Potentially, but once again, I would be shocked if this team trades TJ Watt. End of story.
Okay, fair enough. Jared says, great recent breakdown on Peyton Wilson. Can't wait to see him in an expanded role this season. Would be cool to see Holcomb healthy as well. It would be. I'm excited for Cole Holcomb. I'm sure Cole Holcomb very excited to get back out in the field, get the pads on. I know he's been practicing late last year. He practiced this spring, but that first day in pads will be, I'm sure, a big day for Cole Holcomb. I don't know if it'll get back to him and what his involvement in keeping tabs on Pittsburgh is. Who might really also be happy the first day that Cole Holcomb is in pads and be the first game that he plays should Cole Holcomb make this team and play in a game this year, Dave? But
rephrase that?
I asked that really, really poorly. Do you know who else I think will be really excited and happy and relieved to see Cole Holcomb back fully healthy for the first time? I bet you it's Keanu Neal, because that's the guy who collided into Holcomb on that injury.
Good point.
And Neal's now retired. He had some injuries of his own, but I'm sure he just felt it's not his fault. No one's fault, just a freak thing. But he was probably really, really upset about Holcomb having that injury. So I'm sure he'll be really happy when Holcomb gets back out there.
Good point.
All right, what else do we have here? David says, who is your bet for the Browns quarterback one, Dave? Who do you expect to start week 1?
Flacco.
I'm with you. I think Joe Flacco led him on that playoff run 2 years ago. I think they're not going to start a rookie, and I think we'll beat out Kenny Pickett. Do all 4 quarterbacks make the week 1 roster, Dave? Does somebody get cut, traded?
Somebody's getting cut. Somebody getting traded or something.
Kenny Pickett get traded for a 3rd time in like 18 months?
And do you really spend a 3rd round pick on Gabriel to cut him?
They're not going to get Dylan Gabriel.
Boy. So who's the odd man out then? Sanders?
You're going to cut Shador? I think they keep all 4 quarterbacks. It's very Browns thing to do. Let's collect all these guys and give ourselves some options. They run through quarterbacks year over year.
Boy, that's not the way I'd roster management.
Well, I'm with you, but this is the hand they've dealt themselves. So I think, because they're not cutting. The only 3rd round pick I can think of who didn't make a roster initially that wasn't injury related was Lynn Bowden of the Raiders in that terrible Mayock Gruden draft. He got traded to Miami. I mean, they're keeping Gabriel. Like, I guess Sanders could get cut, but I think he'll have probably a good summer preseason performance.
All right.
I don't know. We'll see, but I think it'll be Flacco week 1. Anything else? Mike says he drives 17 and a half hours split into 2 days. He's got friends and family in the Berg, so he stays a few weeks to make it worth it. 3rd time he's done it, so we appreciate that, Mike. And he also says, is there a better nickname in sports right now than the Big Dumper? That's Cal Raleigh, the Mariners, and I can't disagree with you there, Mike.
Najee, Davenport.
Yeah, that is different. All right, we're going to let that one go. Randy Wagner says, I miss kickoffs. I think it's much more dangerous returning punt returns than kick returns. Am I correct? No, I wouldn't say so. You don't get the car crashes the way that you get them, and the crackback blocks have been taken out. So the kick returns were just super dangerous because you were getting guys at full speed, colliding into each other. On punt returns, you're kind of running more sidecar. So I don't think the data would support that, Randy.
All right.
Jason says, hello, Alex. I just hopped out of my DeLorean after visiting the future, and Trevor told me to say hi to Alex and Uncle Dave. So the internet has not forgotten. Pittsburgh didn't even go to the playoffs that year. I made that Trevor Lawrence vow, so oh well.
Send pictures.
Yeah. Mr. Tommy says, Sanders and Watson get cut. Oh, yeah, Deshaun Watson is there, but he's just going to be on IR, and I don't know. We'll see what happens there. David O, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate that. Also, by the way, since the Davids are here, and we have Steelers Depot Jeopardy, the 4th episode will come out. We're going to record Wednesday. We're going to air it maybe Friday. And so I know I told Dave this on the podcast. David O, I hope you guys are both studying for what's going to be a pretty challenging Champions edition of Steelers Depot Jeopardy.
I think this is all designed for me not to win. This is a conspiracy. This is all being designed by you for me not to win this thing. And I pulled it out of my ass in the last one against David O.
He did come from behind.
So I'll try to study, but I don't think any amount of studying is going to have me ready for whatever you got planned here. It's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to have some questions you think think we can answer there. And if I could learn how to raise my hand, do the raise my hand button, I might have done even better in that last game. But excuses are like, you know what? Everybody's got one. They're all different sizes.
You are partially correct. It is designed for you not to win. It's designed for me to win, and for all of you guys.
You can't win.
I can win by just looking smarter from the front. All these questions are, I would say, answerable. They're all just difficult. There's maybe
they're all answerable with the internet. I mean, I'm sure, but can you get them off the top of your head? Look, I'm older now. I don't have the memory.
You have the memory. You remember the most obscure, random, what the Steelers did on the 3rd possession of 2018 stuff. Like, that's your wheelhouse.
I know. Here's the thing. I've gotten older. The last couple of years, man, my memory has gone to crap. The last couple of years. So I'm setting myself up for failure here. So I have an excuse.
You're setting the bar low, which is probably a good way to go about this. And as David said, we got Ross McCorkle, a champion in the 1st round. So don't sleep on the kid of the group. All right, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us for our last live stream. We'll have one hopefully during camp. That Monday, it's an off day, so that's good. But we'll just have to play things by ear a little bit, depending on how crazy that date is, as we are smack dab in the middle of camp for our next live stream. But appreciate you guys stopping by. The super chats, the questions, we do really are grateful for it. And Dave, thank you for being here as well.
Thank you for moderating these every couple of weeks. That's a tough job in and of itself. I have the easy job. Sit back and listen to these great questions. Thank you for everybody that showed up on this Monday night. before training camp gets underway. We appreciate you. Great questions once again, and peace and love to everybody.
Thank you, Randy, for the kind comments. No autograph booth. No one wants my signature. It's a mess anyway, but we appreciate the kind words. There'll be an archive version of this live stream up on Steelers Depot in just a bit, also archived on the YouTube channel. So be sure to like this video and, just as importantly, subscribe to the channel. Check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.